With an estimated growth rate of up to 20% year on year and the overall market valued at over $1.1 trillion Islamic finance is becoming a serious player in financial circles. Joining me now is Cesar Alvarez, Head of Professional Development Products and Services at CIMA, to talk about what is needed to both capitalise on the industry and help it develop. Cesar, CIMA is the first professional accounting body to offer a global product in Islamic finance. Why did you invest in this?
There was actually a very strong demand for something very specific for individuals in the sector, and we're still finding that's true today. So there's an estimated shortfall of something like 50,000 heads of people working in the Islamic finance sector that needs to be met in the next 5 years or so. There's still a huge demand, I think, for skills acquisition in the sector and knowledge acquisition.
When it comes to the accounting sector, does Islamic finance alter things dramatically, or is there not that much difference?
There is quite a lot of difference and quite a lot of similarity. Some of the core values of Islamic finance are around strong ethical values. That's obviously a very important part of our management accounting qualification and British society as a whole. So there are common threads, as well as risk management as well, which is a core theme in management accounting, and it's something which is very fundamental to Islamic finance. But there are areas as well where both sectors can learn from each other. So from the point of view of the whole stakeholder and shareholder dilemma that Western, if you want to call it that, finance, conventional finance is going through, there's some very good case studies and examples and principles that can be learnt from Islamic finance. And similarly, there's some of the issues that Islamic finance is having with skill shortages and standardisation of principles and etc. I think that there's some lessons they can learn there from Western finance.
So you don't think Islamic finance is just traditional finance repackaged?
No, there are some very fundamental principles that make it very different, like the prohibition of interest, the fact that the burden of risk needs to be shared by both parties, etc., etc.
What's the challenges? Is perhaps perception of Sharia compliance an issue in certain circles?
Possibly. The main issue, I think, is actually just understanding the opportunities that are available. There have been quite a lot of high-profile projects in recent times that have either been wholly funded or considerably funded by Islamic finance sources. So if you think of the Shard, the Olympic Village, the Chelsea Barracks redevelopment, the Battersea Power Station redevelopment, they've all been heavily influenced and supported and financed by Islamic finance. Then you've got large organisations like Lloyd's of London that are actually looking for an office in Malaysia at the moment to try and take advantage of the takaful market, the Islamic insurance market. So I think it's an area which Western organisations are increasingly looking to seek out the opportunities.
What cultural sensitivities do organisations stepping into Sharia markets need to know?
Lots of these financial products obviously have to comply with Sharia law. So there's, the products are prohibited from being related to alcohol, gambling, extreme speculation and uncertainty, all those kind of areas. So they need to be aware of those. And then contracts need to be structured in such a way that actually both parties are sharing the risk. And there are other ways of making deals and contracts that, are hugely important that Western organisations should be aware of if they're going to be contracting in this area.
And how is this growing in Western Europe?
Global figures are quite impressive from the point of year-on-year growth. But then in Western Europe, you've got governments like the UK government last year issued a £200 million sukuk, which went very well. The Bank of England is currently assessing the feasibility of a Sharia-compliant facility with the idea of broadening liquidity provision. So there's huge opportunities there that Western governments are trying to tap into, and the UK government really wants to position itself as a hub for inward Islamic finance investment. But then kind of on a consumer level, the UK's got something like 2.9 million Muslim population. France has got something like 4.7 million, Germany another 4, I believe. And while there are lots of Islamic finance products for commerce and business and industry and projects, there's very little for the consumer market. So there's a huge opportunity, I think, for organisations and institutions to create products and services to tap into that consumer market. For example, Islamic finance compliant mortgages.
Would you say then that all organisations need to be more aware of Sharia compliance?
Organisations that are seeking out new opportunities and seeking out alternative sources of funding and financing, I think it's something which is worthwhile looking at. In order to do so, they do need to make sure that they've got trained staff or they hire in trained staff. So there's a huge skills gap shortage.
Finally, Islamic finance, could this be the future of finance?
Both systems can live happily side by side, and there are bridges already being made from one to the other. So I don't think it's a question of one being more dominant than the other, it's a question of cohabiting.